Brandon, tell the people where we're at. What are we doing here?
What are we doing? We are at West Point. We are at West Point, New York at the U.S. Military Academy.
Heard of it?
West Point. You heard of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard of it as well. Welcome to the Applied Leadership Podcast. As always, we are two friends with one question, half an hour, and zero script. And this might go more than half an hour. I don't know. We'll see what happens because this is a little bit of a special episode. We are filming this right now from a gazebo at the beautiful Thayer Hotel at the United States Military Academy at West Point. Pretty cool spot here. And the question, it's a little bit of a wide open one for us today, is what does it feel like coming back to West Point, and even more broadly, what's it feel like being rooted in a community that that matters? You know, like having roots in an establishment such as a West Point, or there are many other types of establishments. For myself, maybe the 75th Ranger Regiment. But what does it feel like to come back to this institution and be able to participate in the way that we have? And I will just maybe add some context, is that we actually just finished presenting a half-day workshop to 140 cadets who this is part of their academic term. And we were able to share perseverance is greater than endurance, descended into leading through uncertainty, and then also had a really healthy conversation about difficult conversations. And so here we are. Blayne, you graduated from this incredible institution 24 years ago, if you can imagine that.
We should stop saying that.
Yeah, I know. Well, I can't stop, won't stop. But what's this feel like?
I can tell you, and I want to get into it, but I also think that we should talk a little bit about your trip back to Joint Base Lewis McChord last summer for the reunion for the 75th Ranger Regiment to celebrate the 50th anniversary.
Yep.
Because I feel like it may have similar
tones.
Yeah, as
Very
to
much.
what I'm experiencing here this week.
It kind of feels like the question is a little bit more accurately, what's it like coming home?
Yeah, going back. So here's one way to think about it. There's this kind of longstanding joke about how West Point is a great place to be from, but not a great place to be. And that's basically because the experience of being a cadet here is kind of long and hard and punishing in a lot of ways. It's not that it's without fun or joy or good times, but for the most part, I think a lot of cadets, including myself at the time, just kind of want to get through it. And the kind of piece of unsolicited advice that I offered to the cadets today was, do what you can to try to savor your remaining time here and soak up as much as you can from it, because it won't last forever. You will definitely get through it, and you'll regret if you just kind of put your head down and put the blinders on and don't enjoy some of what this opportunity has to offer. But I kind of did that, and I have largely positive feelings and emotions around West Point, but for almost my entire life since graduating, I've thought of it as more of a distributed thing. Meaning I made friends here that are my friends for life. Mm-hmm. I've bumped into people and served with people out in the Army that were either my classmates at West Point or within a few years of me. And that connection, that bond, that sort of brother and sisterhood has served me really well throughout my whole military career. And it's meant a lot to me. And it's never been lost on me how much it matters. And I've seen it time and time again kind of come through and benefit me in ways big and small. And so I always had an affinity for the place. I recognize what it means to be a graduate and to have that kind of network of people. But I've considered it more to be this sort of large, distributed, amorphous thing that doesn't have a whole lot to do with this place, like this piece of real estate that we're on right now. And I've only been back, we talked about it earlier today, maybe 5 times since I've graduated in 24 years, which is not a lot.
No.
But I'll tell you, I came back for a few times I remember, I came back for my 10th reunion. And 10 years after graduating in 2011, the wars were kind of roiling still, especially in Afghanistan at that point.
Some of the bloodiest years.
Yeah, and it had been really bad in Iraq just 3-4 years prior to that. And it was good to be back, but the kind of the tone, the feeling of being back here and around my classmates then was very subdued. You know, a lot of us were still fairly shaken up from our experiences in the war. A lot of us were still in the Army, kind of rotating back and forth. People weren't here because they were deployed.
Right.
And had a very sort of serious, almost somber tone to it. We'd lost a number of classmates at that point. And for many of us, it was the first time we were coming back together. So it was good to be back and amongst friends, but it didn't feel uplifting or joyous, maybe in the way you might imagine. And then I came back again 10 years later for my 20th reunion, which was 3 years ago. And that was different. Mm-hmm. We all felt much older. I think it was a little bit more lighthearted. It was good to see everybody. It seemed like everyone was doing really well at that point. And it started to sink into me then, like how much the place meant to me, just sort of being here and having the time to soak it up a bit. And I'll tell you that this time coming back for something that's not a big event, there's not a lot of pomp and circumstance, there's no parade, there's no football game, there's no scheduled events other than us just spending some time with the cadets and being able to walk around a little bit.
Yeah.
In the last day, it's felt different still. Like it's really kind of hitting me now what the place means to me and how powerful it is to be here. And even independent of some of my friendships, like it really evokes a lot of emotion being back here of like who I was when I showed up, who I was when I graduated, how all of that has changed and developed in the 20 or 25 years since. I mean, it's really cool. And maybe the biggest thing about it has nothing to do with me. It's the chance to be around that many cadets today.
Yeah.
And to connect with them and to see and to hear what they're working with, what they're going through, what their lives are like, what their questions are, how they're seeing their own future, you know, what concerns or apprehensions they have. And then just to see what wonderful young men and women they are.
Incredible.
And how impressive they are and how much better they are than we were at their same age.
Concur.
That to me is maybe the best part, because in a world where there are lots of things to point at, to be pessimistic or downtrodden, like I feel very optimistic about the future of our country and of the world, seeing who they are and what they represent and what they're going through. So yeah, we spent some time at the gift shop a while ago and I bought hundreds of dollars worth of stuff because I realized I have like no stuff. I don't have a polo shirt or a hoodie or anything.
You need this polo. This is your tribe. This is your alma mater. It's great.
And with your encouragement, you know, you're like, put it on the company card. Like you need to do this. And it's because I've always thought of it differently. I'm like, I have the memories, I have the lessons, I have the friendships. I don't need a ball cap or a polo shirt or a hoodie or whatever. And now I feel more like, no, I need the reminder that I am of this place and from this place. And I have that web of friends and classmates around the country and around the world that I can lean on. And like, I want to now have the West Point flag up in my garage gym as a reminder of that. I feel very differently about it, just having been here for 24 hours. So anyway, that's my kind of once over the world take on it. I'm curious what you have to say, because you also had an active duty Army stint here that was very different, obviously, than mine, in a very different season of your life.
Yeah. So when I served here on the commanding general, which is the superintendent's staff at West Point, it was just coming out of being in the Ranger Regiment for 9 years. It was my entire career at that point in time. It's all I knew was the Ranger Regiment. And I came here and it was a really difficult season of my life. Leaving that setting, leaving, you know, those brotherhoods and, you know, sisterhoods with all the spouses. It was very difficult. Kelly and I were kind of trying to make sense of it all. Yeah. And so candidly, I don't think that I really embraced the opportunity to really lean in, you know. I was sharing with you a little bit earlier, especially as we were leaving the gift shop, you know, like, so I bought a, you know, Duty Honor Country shirt with the West Point logo on it. And I'm really proud. If it doesn't probably seem like a big deal, but it does for me, because, you know, when I was here, I kind of had this sense of like, you know, hey, it's cool. Like this is a club and it's your club and it's not my club. I'm not in this club. I have my own club, you know, I'm a Ranger. and that's fine. But what I missed was that the folks that I worked with, who I had a great experience with, I learned a ton from. The cadets that I got to interact with, the setting, the place, really all that they were trying to do was welcome me into the team, to say like, no, you are on our team, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me, coming back to West Point, and running from Thayer Hall all the way up to, up Stony Lonesome Road to Stony Lonesome 2, which is the housing, area that Kelly and Jaden and Ellie and I lived at for, it was only like 6 months before we moved off post. It was really meaningful for me, actually. It has been very meaningful. And what made it most meaningful is being with the cadets. They were so incredible. I mean, incredibly talented, bright, focused, engaged, interested, curious, willing to, sharpen their own leadership axe and ask inquisitively and just be willing to listen. It was, I think, in many ways, the same degree of invitation that was being cast towards me 18 years ago, only this time I was able to hear it.
Yeah, so here, let me tell you what I observed is that the cadets, I think, were more interested in what you had to say, like during the breaks and stuff, than what I had to say, because I am like an old grad. I'm just another guy who graduated 24 years ago, and I'm going to come back and share some things. So they're interested in what I have to say because I've been down the path ahead of them. But they have a lot of interactions with people like me, whether they're attack officers or professors, other officers here at West Point. They can tell them a lot of what they want to know about what Ranger School is like, or what being a platoon leader is like, or any of those things from the officer perspective. But to have somebody like you, who was a non-commissioned officer and served in the Ranger Regiment and was at a really high level in what you did, I think they're intrigued by that. They want that perspective because they're going to have to go out and be a platoon leader someday, and they're going to have to learn to work alongside NCOs. And that's probably what they're most nervous about, is getting out there away from this kind of bubble we have here at West Point in the real Army, and being the only officer in their platoon and having to engage with the NCOs. And so for someone like you to be here and bring the lessons that you've brought and have all the business experience that you have now, so you're obviously not just bringing an NCO perspective, you're bringing somebody with 15 years of business experience. I thought they were really intrigued by you and were very hungry to hear your perspective. I also picked up on this thread that I hadn't thought about, is that you and I had kind of a similar disposition toward this place, which was like, we were here, it was okay. We left when we could and felt really no need to stay really close to it. And maybe now realize that we could have and should have felt a little more settled and just appreciated what we had going on here when we did, and maybe missed a little bit of an opportunity at the time. Maybe.
And I think that, number one, you're very kind. And what I noticed was them leaning in when you took the time, so you are one of them. You had the same experience as them. You know exactly what they're going through. I mean, goodness gracious, all the jokes still land because it's all still the same stuff, right? But, you go on, you have a successful career leading in the 1st Cav in Iraq. You then, are successful in becoming a Green Beret and getting out and leading a team out there. And what I really noticed that resonated is that they were really leaning in when you were talking about the fact that you needed to ask for help. Nobody goes undefeated in life. There was a time where, and when you get accepted to a place like this, where you're an 18-year-old young person, most of the people that come here, and you have to have an elected official sign off and say, yeah, no, this person should go there. That's a big deal. That's a really big deal. And it's earned, it's warranted, right? And it is only consistently measured more and more and more, right? In the sense that it's crystal clear that it is a high stress, high expectation environment by which you are constantly measured and you must measure up. For them to hear you not only successful in the Army by all standards, but also overachieving, but also in business overachieving by all standards, talk about the fact that like there's gonna come a time where you can't just grit your teeth and suffer through it. You're gonna have to ask for some help, and you got to ask for help from your NCOs. You got to ask for help from your command. You got to ask for help from your family, from your people, your friends, all of these things. That really resonated. So I want to make sure that, like I said, you're very kind, but I think that they were paying just as much attention, if not more. But the other thing that I want to jump to, which I think is really interesting, is that I think there's something to be said about like space and place where maybe there are times that we're just not really ready to let it kind of seep into our hearts a little bit deeper. We're not ready to really see it for what it is. We're not ready to be fully where our feet are, especially when you're in a situation where you're, for me, when I got here as a duty station, sure, my feet were here, but my brain was thinking, 24 months down the line when I get out of the military. And the whole time, I'm doing my duties, but then I'm going straight to college from the kitchen table.
Yeah.
For you, your feet are here, but just not dissimilar from these young, incredible leaders that we just got to spend a morning with. Is they're thinking about the force. They're thinking about commissioning. How could you not? The whole establishment is geared for people to be thinking about that. And so I think your advice to them to, try their best to really be where their feet are and embrace it was really important. And I think that I think there's something to it where, sometimes you're not ready for that. Sometimes you're just not there.
I think probably it falls on deaf ears for the most part. It's like worth a shot. Maybe a couple of them take heed of that and it kind of sinks in. I think that for the most part, they're like, that's probably true. You're probably right. I'll do my best. But also I've got a million things going on and I'm just going to try to, suck it up and get through it. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting to think about it too this way, because I remember when I first got to the 2nd Ranger Battalion, one of the biggest pieces of advice from Jump Street was take a lot of pictures. And when my son got into the military, I said, take a lot of pictures. I'll make sure that I say that to these folks because we're going on a long hike with them tomorrow. But because what I find the value of the pictures that I have is that I can actually look back and actually experience it in a different way. Because at the time that I was taking the picture, it was like, we're on a mission, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, we're la, 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 whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I do want to remember, and I do want to be able to look back and look at those, times like, 20 years from now, these folks are going to be able to pull out a picture, ideally on their phone and be like, oh my gosh, do you remember so-and-so? Have you talked to him lately? Have you talked to her? Wonder what they're doing. Hit them up on text right now, like whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's something to that, I think.
Yeah, those visual images create like a gateway back into your brain that you can then like recall and pull up the bigger story.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need that like quick image and then you're like, oh, I remember that weekend we were doing this and we were over at so-and-so's house, or I remember that mission we were out. So there's something really to that. And I want to keep drilling a little bit on what you said about maybe it's not the right time. Because I think that's a really good point. And I hadn't thought enough about that, which is that you really can't force it.
Mm-mm.
Like you feel how you feel.
That's right.
When you feel it. And you can try to have more perspective. You can try to be patient. You can try all of these things. But, when you're in real life and things are really coming at you and you've got real priorities and stuff you have to do, you don't always have the luxury of kind of sitting back and saying like, oh, this too shall pass. I really should just be present in the moment and enjoy it. If that were the case, there wouldn't be $1 zillion worth of like meditation apps and supplements and everything else, courses and coaches and all these people.
That's exactly right.
Trying to teach us all to be present and calm and whatever, because it's just a very hard thing to do. And I don't think it's getting any easier, for these kids. We had lots of long, drawn out, boring weekends where we just had very few inputs. And I'm sure it's still a little this way for them, but it's not as much as it used to be with their phones and stuff like that, right? So I think that's harder to do than it is to say. And maybe we just need to kind of respect that. That's something I'm thinking about right now, is that whether it's my time here or my time in the Army or my time even in places like Team RWB, those were moments in time. And I feel very lucky to have known the people and done the stuff that we had the good fortune of doing in those moments and in those kind of seasons. But, I don't think I ever could have appreciated what they were going to mean to me later when I was in the midst of doing them. And so there's probably some balance there that I need to think more about, which is like, sometimes you just need to kind of do what you're doing and try to be as present in what you're doing as you can and not think too much about what it's going to mean to you later. And maybe that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of banking those memories, you're really embracing it, and you're not, I don't know, you're not super caught up in it, perhaps. I don't know, it's a lot to think about. This place, maybe more than any other, confuses me, I think, around that, because it's just, what it is that you're told when you're here, like old people like me come back and tell these kids, this is special, this is unique. And if you walk around, you can kind of see it and feel it. Even as a cadet, you're like, look at these big castle-like buildings. Look at this beautiful view of the Hudson River. Look
apparently
at this parade.
That cannon was the first shot fired in the Civil War. Yeah. That's not nothing.
You're just walking past Bartlett Hall, and there's the cannon that fired the first shot of the Civil War.
Who knew?
So it's special.
The gravitas.
Yes, you do, and yet it's hard to kind of reconcile it, I guess. It's a very tall order, I guess, to try to do that.
Yeah, it's something that I'm curious about, which isn't fully formulated, but do you think that it's, I don't know how to say this other and not sound like almost like, pithy about it, but like maybe it's not the place, maybe it's actually the people, right? And the people are what make the place what it is. I mean, you have all these statues and names and everything. Those are all human beings. They all had like a unique life. They all contributed in some way. And you made me think about that when you started talking about like Team RWB, your time in the Army, and knowing that, like right now, you and your, Aaron and you and folks from the 1st Cav are talking about, hey, can we get the folks together? Can we find a way to link up, right? It's the people. They have nothing to do with, Fort Hood or Cavazos, whatever, right? Yeah. Team RWB, right? You pick up the phone, we call JJ, and it's like, hey, pick right back up, where you were before. For me, one of the neat things is having the opportunity coming here and the invitation through Colonel Mike Klepper's department and whatnot, who I met in 1998 as First Lieutenant Klepper, right?
Well, worth pointing out that the only reason we're here is because you actually had the relationship with somebody who's here at West Point and then invited us to come in and be a part of this. I, as the graduate, I don't even know this person. I only know him now through you. So, I mean, I think that's worth pointing out, that yes, there's an invitation for you to be here because you actually earned us the invitation to come here.
But I think the point though is that it's the connective tissue, right? Yeah. Like it's the connective tissue that has allowed me to experience this place with fresh eyes. It's the connective tissue that I feel with, the 140 cadets that we, got to be with. Like we left, we're just going, I mean, goodness gracious, like we did some shopping. I'm pretty proud of us, but we're over in, one of the stores looking for like some swag and whatnot. And, we had a couple cadets came up to us and were like, hey, I was in your session. Thank you so much. And just talking to us, and just, it's the best, right? It's the connective tissue. And I'm just like, damn, man, like, hey, you're on my team. I can tell you that right now. So I'm proud to be on your team. Well,
that's part of the story now.
Yes.
Right. It's not just, who you served with here or my classmates here. It's now, right. Fortunately for us, we have these other people that we've now connected with that are here in a different time and place.
Yeah. I think that's what makes these castles so special.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about going back to Lewis last summer for the Ranger Regiment reunion, because similarly, you see that diamond or that scroll,
Yeah.
and you see these young people who now apparently all look like NFL players.
Incredible.
Walking around doing it. They're very different than the people that you and I were 20 years ago. And yet in many ways it's very much the same. What was that like? I got to imagine there's some similar things going on there where you're like, I recognize this, but it's also different.
It is, yeah. Not to mention the fact that like the barracks that I grew up in, that I lived in, they're gone.
Yeah.
Right? They were leveled, it was rebuilt and everything. And it's great that they were, because it's amazing what they have now. But still in all, you walk in there and the same damn pictures are up in the bars. It's like, hey, there I am. Hey, look, there's Vinny and me, there's Chewy and me, and it's it was really powerful. It was really, dare I say, beautiful. And I was able to see that, with different eyes. I mean, there was certainly nothing, I didn't see much as beautiful, in my 6 years at 2nd Ranger Battalion, because it was, you get there and you're just like, good Lord.
Brutal.
These people are going to kill me.
Yeah.
It was very brutal. Yeah. It was a brutal environment. You're hard pressed to find a more violent and intense environment. And you're just like, I just got to hold on and get through this. And then, then you get into leadership and it's constant competition, constant evaluation, like it's relentless.
You earn it every day, right?
Every single day. That's right. And then the war started, and I barely even saw the place anymore, because we were always, I was in Bagram more than I was, in JBLM or Fort Lewis at the time. So it was really beautiful to come back. But again, it's like when you started asking me that question, I immediately thought of Don Boyer. Don Boyer is, he and I were squad leaders together in Afghanistan, OEF 1 and OEF 2. And he would go on to become the Command Sergeant Major of the 2nd Ranger Battalion. And there was this moment that I think I might have only told you and Kelly about when I got back. But there was this moment where the 2nd Ranger Battalion, they did this beautiful commemoration where they had the whole battalion in formation, and there were a bunch of killed in action bracelets on these tables, and then and killed in training. And so every Ranger who has died while assigned to the 2nd Ranger Battalion, their name was called out. A Ranger from that company came forward, picked up the bracelet, put it on, and then rejoined their company formation. It was really beautiful. And we got to this point where we're all standing there, and there was thousands of people there. It was insane, from all eras. And it was really interesting because Don Boyer, who works there now as a civilian, he was, I would say, probably like 15, 20 feet away from me. We were just kind of all on this wide open quad area, just standing there. And I just paused as he was walking, he was walking us over. And when they read out, and I was like, oh man, like maybe I should go like stand next to Don, because that would be really meaningful to me. And I was just like, God, I'm totally in my head, just shut up, just stand there at attention, like stop being so freaking like emotional, Brandon. Like this is me, as my internal voice, right? And so I'm just standing there, and they read off Jay Blessing, who was killed during our 3rd rotation. And it was the most beautiful thing, because right as they're reading off Jay Blessing's name, I feel this arm come over my shoulder, and Don Boyer had walked over and put his arm around my shoulder. And we just stood there together in silence. We were both, out in the, out in the deep in the Hindu Kush when that incident happened. We both were friends with Jay. It was meaningful, and I just share that because like that's what it was about for me, right? Like that was so special for me, because it meant just as much, because it kind of was like a signal, like, it meant something to both of us. We meant something to both of us. Our friendship means something special to both of us that transcends this place, the space, the time. We're 20 some odd years later, and it is the through line that brings us back together. And why places like, a otherwise insignificant plot of land on JBLM means something to us, because it in fact is our home, because that's where our family is.
Yeah. I feel like we could go super deep on this, and I don't know where the rabbit hole kind of bottoms out, but I think this is true of so many places. Like going home, like, so my parents, for example, live in the home that I more or less grew up in.
Mm.
We moved into a home in Cape Coral, Florida when I was 5 years old. My parents bought it for $40,000 and fixed it up, and we moved in there, and they still live there to this day. And I will tell you that through all the ups and downs and winding roads of my life, it's meant a lot to me to know that I could always go home.
Yeah.
And there have been times, even when I was a grown-ass man, I remember when I was going through a divorce in 2012, I, at one point, just needed to go stay the weekend with my parents.
You needed to go home.
And just get rooted and talk some things out and kind of think of what I was going to do next. And I don't know for sure if they've done this intentionally or what the story is, but, that has meant a lot to me to know that it's always there. And I think about my kids and my family and my travels, and we've moved a lot.
Yeah.
We don't have, maybe we will, where we live now, maybe we'll be there a long time, but we don't have that same thing. And people say like, well, especially in the Army, like home is where your family is. It's where your people are. It's where, as long as we're together, we're home. And I don't discount that. I don't think that's untrue.
Yeah.
But I also think that it would be silly to just gloss over the fact that sometimes a physical place also really can contribute to being home. And one of the reasons we live in Maine now is because Jenny is from Maine, and Maine is a special place. And if you're from there, it pulls you back. And her family is there, and the little farm she grew up on is there, and we go there. And when we spend time there, it's still, on just a regular Sunday afternoon, it's emotional sometimes for her just to stand out in the backyard at Mimi's place and look out at the pasture and the pond and just think about
It's amazing
what it used to look like and what it could be someday and how long it may or may not be in the family. Like, these are emotional things because that place actually does matter, as well as the people that are there. And I don't know the best way to do this for my family. I don't know the best way to do this for our friends or any of that, but I think we can try our best, and we should try our best to be a home for our kids or for our friends or for our people. But I don't think we can just throw out the idea that a place like West Point or the 2nd Ranger Battalion or the family farm doesn't matter, and that we're just going to be the same without it. 'Cause I just don't think that's true. I kind of wish it were true, because I think that would be better for kind of me and my family. But like, I don't think that's the case. Like, I think having some of that bedrock kind of stuff does matter. I mean, it's the reason we drive down the road here in the village of Highland Falls, and I'm like, oh, the park restaurant's closing. Well, that's a shame. That place is an institution.
Yeah.
Or that wasn't there before. Like, I don't mean to like give you the unsolicited guided tour, but like, it just comes out of me.
I love it.
I can't help it.
I love it.
And it's the same if you go visit a friend or your wife or family somewhere where they grew up, and you drive down some winding country road. They're like, oh, that's where they lived and whatever. My wife has told me innumerable times who used to live in that house on Hallowed Road. I'm like, I know, but she still feels compelled to tell me when we drive by. Because like, you almost can't help it. And so and not to make this a lesson in anything really, but I do think there's something there that we should pay attention to, whether it's for our kids or our coworkers or even like our customers, right? Like,
or our souls,
places,
our hearts.
Yeah. I mean, even like a church, right? Like, you can say all the time that the church is not this building. It's the people, it's the congregation, it's the spirit. And yet, like, I don't know, man. Like, I feel different.
I gotta be honest.
If I'm in the cadet chapel later, which we should definitely go, by the way.
Oh, that's what we should do next.
If I go to the cadet chapel and I walk into that place,
you feel
there's something there, whether it's metaphysical or whatever, or just mental.
Probably
the place matters.
No, but that's the point, I think, is it probably is all. Like, maybe places like this matter because your DNA is here. It is in this place.
Yeah.
We are far more connected, metaphysically, mentally, emotionally, than we even can fathom, than we even can know. I mean, that simple story I just told you about, like, Don, I mean, we were connected 20 feet apart and like,
well, and don't think, not to get all woo, but don't think there wasn't like some sort of like, I don't know, connection, vibration, something. I don't know the language.
Right? No,
there was something there, right?
That's right. I mean, this, not to get super weird, but like, this is the same connection that you have when you are operating with a tight team, even if you're doing close quarter battle.
Yep.
There was a time when I could swear that my guys could read my mind just by what I was thinking, and they would do it. Or that I could do, reverse. Like, I could pick up every movement that James had, or John Wagner, or, any of these guys. Like, I could pick it up and I knew it, and we knew something was there. Maybe that's the point. Like, we knew it was there because it is there. The same reason why, when I'm running up Stony Lonesome Road, and it's not just a crappy run. It's a hard run, right?
It's a hard
straight
run.
up. I mean, I don't know the vert or anything on it, but it's a hard run, but I feel it. Like, I feel the connection to it. Like, oh my gosh, I remember pushing Ellie in the stroller coming down to football games down the hill from, Stony Lonesome too. Like, I remember that. Like, and I was here, like, we were here. I know, like, for grads, you guys talk about the long gray line, that you're a part of. It matters. And, I guess I'm just saying, like, it's more than just the people. It probably includes these gray stones that are, standing up over the Hudson River right here. It's all a part of it.
Golly, I have one more story. Maybe we wrap this up because I don't even know what we're talking about. I guess what we're trying to convey maybe to one another is that we shouldn't underplay or miss the opportunity to connect to both people and places.
Yes.
And we should value their significance and not poo-poo this kind of stuff because it really matters.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you a weird story I haven't thought about in forever about your run to Stony Lonesome.
Mm-hmm.
Look at this. This is fantastic. I came, it has to do with West Point loosely. When I was on a team at 3rd Special Forces Group, I was thinking about whether I was going to stay in the Army or get out of the Army. And I figured that I would be willing to stay in the Army if I could come get a teaching job here at West Point. And so, because it would be meaningful to me, it would be enriching, I'd have a chance to go to grad school and learn and grow and then come here and be with my family. And it just seemed like, yeah, that would make sense. If the Army keeps letting me do cool stuff, I'll stay in the Army.
Yeah.
So I flew up here on my own dime to New York to interview for a job at the Soch department to see if they would select me to come teach. And the day before I came up here to West Point to meet and interview for this job, I was staying in Queens, in Astoria, with my then wife's sister, my sister-in-law, because that's where she lived, and we were just visiting. And I said, hey, I'm going to go set out on a run. I'll come back in a bit. And I didn't really have a plan. I just kind of needed to go for a run.
Yeah.
And so I started running west. And before I know it, I'm just kind of like, well, I'll run over into Manhattan. That'll be cool, and like maybe run down the FDR for a little bit and come back. Like, oh, that's cool. So I run across, I think, the Triborough Bridge, and I get into Manhattan and I make a left and I turn south and I start running down the FDR. And I just and I'm running and I keep going south and I'm checking things out. And again, kind of no plan. And then at some point it hits me like I should run downtown to where the Twin Towers were.
Yeah.
And so this would have been 2007, 8. So it hadn't been reconstructed yet.
Yeah.
There was no Freedom Tower. It was still kind of rubble. It was a bit of a mess.
Yep. It was like those big holes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hadn't been there since. And I don't know what compelled me to do it. I just kept running. And I didn't know how far it was. I had no money, no ID, no nothing. No phone.
Naturally.
Yeah. And so I just kept going and I ran all the way to ground zero. And I stood there and I looked at it and I I don't even know what I felt. I just felt like I had to be there. I had to see it. You know, like I had to maybe connect with this sort of this impetus, this thing that changed the course of my life and the whole reason I was still even in the Army and had been to war and all that.
Yeah.
And I realized when I was there, I guess I was like, shit, I've been gone a long time. I'm not even sure how long I've been gone. And I have to run all the way back. And I think I've been running for like over an hour. And so I turned around and I was like, maybe I could jump a turnstile and get on the subway. I'm like, no, I just have to kind of run back. And so I just started I jogged really slow. It was so far. And I finally made my way back on foot all the way. At which point they're like, where the hell were you? What is going on?
We were worried sick.
It was a total asshole move. I should never have done that. You know, it was a jerk thing to do.
So,
you know? And I knew it was like an irresponsible kind of a jerk thing to do even, and I still did it. And then there was
a magnet pulling you.
Thing I had to go and I had to see it. And I ended up running like 22 miles with no water. And like, I just did it. And the next day I came up here and I asked for the job and why I needed to come and teach at West Point. And then through a series of unfortunate events, I ended up not being able to come here and teach. And I ended up getting out of the Army, and that's a whole other story that we don't need to get into. But tying that all into being here today and finally having that opportunity to stand in front of a room full of cadets and offer them something,
teach.
Man, what a big... there's a lot more in the stew than I think I appreciated. And I'm just right now in this conversation, some of it's coming to life. So thanks for doing this, man. Thanks for having this conversation. Thanks for making this happen. Thanks for encouraging me to buy some swag at the cadet store. I mean, I really appreciate it. I think this means a lot more to me than I even can acknowledge right now, but it's super cool. And I hope this isn't the last time we get a chance to be here.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And welcome home, Blayne Smith. That's what this is, man.
Yeah. It's cool.
Yeah. I think that's going to be a wrap.
All right. Is this a podcast?
I don't know.
Fair enough.
All right. Hey, thanks guys for being on this journey with us. And if you have any questions, hit us up, contact@appliedleadershippartners.com. We'll see you on the trail.